Chapter 30 Wish Fulfillment of Devotees. Jadavji Bhai, a Lohana by caste, had his vegetable shop in the market and was fond of distributing sweet pieces amongst children who said Jai Siya Ram. He also encouraged them to visit Gurudev's ashram in Rajkot. Being a person of devout nature and strong faith, he believed in divinity of Gurudev and surrendered unto him to get salvation from this sansar. With the passage of time, he lost all interest in worldly activities and entrusted his business to his younger brother and resided for full time in Gurudev's ashram. He devoted the entire day to sadhan bhajan, meditation, and on rare occasion, he cooked his own simple and frugal meal. During meditation, he reached such a perfect stage of samadhi where he could see Gurudev in person, and he would know all about his actions and present place of residence. Gurudev himself confirmed it by saying, "Jadav knows all about me and my actions." Once, when Gurudev was in a benevolent mood, Jadavji Bhai asked him for the following 3 wishes. My life should end in a holy place. 1. 2. Shukla Paksh Chaturthi should be my last day on earth. And 3. Above all, at the time of my death, you must place your benign hand on my head, and I should leave the world with my attention fixed firmly on your divine form. Gurudev said with a smile, God willing, your wishes will come true. However, Jadavji Bhai was smarter. He wrote down his wishes on a piece of paper and requested Gurudev to sign it. At his insistence, Pujya Shri did so, and Jadavji Bhai took the paper and preserved it till the very end, as though his life depended on it. As years passed, he caught TB in its terminal stages, and he increased his sadhan bhajan. And as his end drew nearer, 2 other devotees took Jadavji Bhai to Chitrakoot for Gurudev's last darshan. Over there, Gurudev was in Kashtamon. During this period, some sadhus, doubting such rigorous form of sadhana, checked up the entire place of samadhi to locate holes which would supply fresh air to him during samadhi. But when they found the genuineness of his sadhana, they too started revering him like other devotees. Truly, one can never measure the siddhas by our worldly standards. Having supervised the Herculean project of the Mahayagna, Gurudev had chosen to remain in a state of avichal samadhi, meaning total cessation of bodily and mental processes, and yet, even during this period, on account of his yogic powers, Gurudev could achieve anything and reach any place on earth. This is a stage in Upasana as described by Lord Krishna as Samadhi in the Gita. During this Samadhi, a sadhak achieves a state of non-duality with the Supreme Brahman. Like a radio transmitter sending forth electronic waves through the medium of ether, a sadhak during this stage is in contact with the entire universe through the medium of his thought vibrations. On paper, this might sound strange, but the saints who have experienced this state of super and supreme consciousness will bear testimony to its truth. On the 2nd day of Bhadrapad, Shukla Paksh, Gurudev opened the doors of his kutir and gave darshan to devotees who were eagerly awaiting this moment since the last 2 months. Along with others, Jadavji Bhai offered his pranam. The satsang continued till 11 p.m., and when the crowd had dispersed, Jadavji Bhai, finding this needed solitude, asked, Bapu, so far you have fulfilled all my wishes. Now for my last journey, on my way to Sri Hari, I want your permission to leave this world, and please remember your last promise to me. Moved by such matchless faith and devotion, Pujya Shri said, May Sri Ram fulfill all your wishes. Now, as if fully recovered from all his illnesses, he returned to his quarters after offering pranam. Next day was the third tithi of Bhadrapad Shukla Paksh. When Bhimji Bapa found Jadavji Bhai on the verge of death at 9 a.m., he rushed to Gurudev, who was busy giving discourse to saints. On hearing the sad news, Gurudev rushed to his bedside and ordered his body to be placed on ground for last rites. He told everybody to leave the room and close the doors. People who were outside could now distinctly hear the words, Jadav, Jadav, open your eyes and look who is facing you. After some time, he called everybody in and said, Let Jadav be placed back on the cot. He won't be leaving us now, but only at 8 p.m. in the evening. He added, Today we have a bhandara, and how can Jadav leave before feeding the sadhus? When he resumed his pravachan to the saints, some of them asked, What is the condition of your disciples, Swamiji? Gurudev replied calmly in a confident tone, You may go and look for yourself. They went there, and after noting his condition, they told Gurudev, Your disciple will surely die within 1 hour. Again, his confident reply was, No, he will leave this world exactly at 8 p.m. tonight. Knowing that Jadavji Bhai could not survive for more than an hour, they kept a strict vigil outside Jadavji Bhai's room. Meanwhile, to everyone's surprise, the patient appeared to be in perfect bliss, free from all sufferings. He kept on smiling and opening and closing his eyes at regular intervals. The sadhu bhojan commenced in the evening, and the lunar tithi changed from 3rd to 4th at 8 p.m. And then, as predicted by Gurudev, Jadavji Bhai closed his eyes forever. To honor the promise that he had given to Jadavji Bhai, Gurudev had postponed his death from 9 in the morning till 8 in the evening by his divine powers. Thus, exactly on the 4th tithi of Shukla Paksh, in a holy place, Chitrakoot, with his head touched by Gurudev's benign hands, Jadavji Bhai got his promise fulfilled. The doubting sannyasis, having seen this miracle, promptly became Gurudev's disciples. By way of last rites, his body was bathed with holy waters, anointed with chandan, clothed in a new dress, and seated in a yogic posture, and garlanded by Pujya Shri. With the saints as his pallbearers, his last journey resounded with the chants of Ram Nam. Gurudev said, Jadav's devotion obliged me to grant him his wishes, and Sri Ram kindly helped to fulfill my obligation. Among thousands of devotees, Jadavji Bhai was perhaps the only one who fully recognized Gurudev's divinity and used this knowledge to obtain his wishes, whereby he was assured of salvation. Though Gurudev often made the statement that he did not believe in miracles, what happened in the present case was nothing short of a public miracle. Though every one of his devotees, at some time or the other, experienced things nearing a miracle in their lives, what Jadavji Bhai could achieve by his faith and devotion was indeed unique. Jadavji Bhai realized what Gita says about faith and surrender, and left behind an example for emulation by all devotees. Only those who completely surrender unto me with true faith can realize me and see my divine light, said Lord Krishna in the Gita. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 31. Dinubhai's Good Fortune. Though Dinubhai and Jayaben were married since several years, they had no children. The entire family was unhappy on account of this situation. Dr. Purandare, a leading gynecologist, had operated on Jayaben without any result. When they consulted Dr. Shirodkar, he gave his firm opinion that Jayaben's ovaries were so formed that childbearing was not possible. He ruled out further operation and advised them that it was futile to waste further amounts on medical treatment. When Gurudev heard about it, he told Jayaben, "You make it a point to attend the next Eye Camp. Your devoted services to the poor and needy and your help in alleviation of their suffering may get you their blessings for a child." Jayaben faithfully followed these instructions. After some months, Gurudev sent a telegram to Dinubhai's mother in Gondal and called her to Dwarka and told her, "Ma, now I am convinced that Jaya will have a child after 5 months. Better get her medically checked up and let me know." Since Jayaben had her usual menses over very long intervals of 6 to 8 months due to her health, no one was aware of these glad tidings. She was once again taken to Dr. Shirodkar, who confirmed Gurudev's prediction with a pleasant surprise and said, "Such things can happen only by divine grace." The girl thus born with Gurudev's blessing was named Madhuri. Once Pujya Shri saw her playing among children with peals of laughter. Gurudev told Jayaben, "Jaya, Madhu has grown up and is asking for a brother." Later, after the birth of her son Jagdish, Gurudev remarked, "Now do not hope for more." For confirmation, they consulted Dr. Shirodkar, and on Jayaben's checkup, he found that her ovaries had receded to their former position and further childbearing was not possible. Both the husband and wife were overwhelmed with gratitude for Gurudev's divine grace. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 32. The Benevolent Influence of Ram Nam. Shri Bhogibai, who was very fond of Ram Nam Sankirtan and Jap as well as Sadhu Seva, had his first darshan of Gurudev during Ram Mahayagna in Rajkot. In 1952, when Gurudev came to Jamnagar after celebrating Guru Purnima in Rajkot, Bhogibai came for darshan. When Gurudev, by way of blessings, put a tilak on his forehead, Bhogibai felt electrified by the touch. He says his true Sharanagati started from that day onwards. He told Gurudev, "None can attain salvation from this world without the divine grace of Mahatmas like you. How could a spiritual pygmy like me reach out and experience your infinite presence?" Gurudev merely smiled. Bhogibai has a tile factory in Jamnagar. He asked, "Bapu, will you grace my factory by your visit?" Gurudev promptly agreed and said, "Why not? Your factory is owned by God and you are only his representative, and you must discharge your duties over there without the sense of attachment or that of being the owner." During the visit to his factory, Gurudev took a complete round and wrote on the photograph that was presented for his autograph, "Indeed, it is certain that the Lord alone can inspire and protect us in our efforts and undertakings." That factory continues to produce superior quality tiles. Bhogibai firmly believes that it is managed by divine power. After this visit, Bhogibai became more and more introspective and felt the presence of God incarnate in the person of Gurudev. At times he would become choked with emotions at the very sight of him, and instead of coming nearer like others, he would offer his pranam from the distance and sit humbly on the very edge of the gathering of devotees. At the time of Bhogibhai's formal initiation, Gurudev signed the photograph with his words, "He alone is the true partaker of the fruits of his actions, who does so with a thoughtful mind." This sentence gave Bhogibai inexhaustible strength to remain equanimous and patient in prosperity and calamity alike. He felt that Gurudev's presence was always there with him to guide and shield him. After the initiation, he used to devote more and more time to chanting of Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Writing of Ram Nam and Sankirtan became his life's mission. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 33. Founding of Shri Raghuveer Temple. An idol of Shri Lalji, installed many years ago in a cave near Janki Kund, was being worshipped by people ceremoniously. By passage of time, the cave had become dilapidated, but the saints believed the cave to be the temple itself. In view of this, Muniji wished to have proper temple for the idol near Janki Kund. The matter was placed before Gurudev, and he replied, "Constructing a new temple is a good idea, but it may bring along several administrative burdens. Yet, if all of you think it proper, you may go ahead." Since the cause was dear to all the devotees, after Gurudev's permission, they started the work of construction, amidst chants of joy and cheer. The work lasted for 2 years, and during this period, Bhimji Bapa stayed there full time, and even the Mahatmas exerted to their utmost ability and got the work carried out by selected artisans from all over India. During this period, one Brahmin child came to the Kund and desired to be a disciple of Gurudev. He was accepted and given the Virakta initiation with due ceremony. At the Kund, the child initiate came to be known as Ranchoddasji Maharaj. In addition, 2 other boys came with similar objective, and one of them was known as Ranchoddasji Maharaj. On completion of the temple, Gurudev, who was at that time in Bhavnagar, was duly invited to perform the inauguration ceremony. When he accepted, the entire atmosphere of the Kund became joyous with anticipation. For 9 days prior to the day of inauguration, continuous recitation of Sri Ramayanji and Sankirtan by Bhogibai and his troupe was organized. Bhandaras for Mahatmas with sumptuous dishes were held. Several devotees and saints and Mahatmas came over there. On 15th March 1953, on Ram Navami Day, Gurudev supervised the work of installation of the idol of Shri Lalji in the new temple with due ceremony. The actual installation was done by Jaman Bhai, the worthy son of Bhimji Bapa. Gurudev had insisted on Shri Lalji's idol because, as he said, though the temple was new, the idol which was being worshipped all throughout by the devotees was that of Shri Lalji. By the grace of Gurudev, the inauguration ceremony was accomplished without any hitch or hindrance. For these 9 days, even the most notorious monkeys of Chitrakoot never bothered anyone with their pranks. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 34. The Pilgrimage to Badri Kedar. After the temple inauguration, the devotees requested Gurudev to bless them with his divine company on their pilgrimage to Badri Kedar. Gurudev replied, "I won't come alone. There will be about 10 Mahatmas and a few poor along with me." To this, Nenshi Bhai replied, "Let all who are desirous accompany us. It will be a pleasure to arrange for their expenses." Having agreed, Pujya Shri asked some of the present company, "Haricharan, shall we go?" Haricharan-ji replied in the positive. And when Gurudev asked him about his indifferent health, he replied that with Gurudev's blessings, he would be able to bear the inclemencies of the weather. "All right then, prepare for the journey and also make a list of those who would like to come along, but make it clear that only those who can bear the physical hardships of the journey should give their names." About 10 Mahatmas, 50 devotees and 50 villagers joined the group. Omkar Bhai and Ranchoddasji were put in charge of the administrative work for the group of pilgrims. On the way to Hardwar, several devotees came to their respective railway stations to have darshan. At Hardwar, Gurudev told the devotees, "You have taken great pains by joining the yatra, so do not waste your time on trivialities, but use it for Swadhyay, Gita Path and Nam Smaran." The journey from Hardwar to Rudraprayag was to be by bus. When some devotees requested Gurudev to use a car for his comfort, he politely declined and preferred to bear all the hardships along with the other pilgrims. On the way to Srinagar, where the accommodation was insufficient, some misguided devotees took over all the available rooms for their use, and the sadhus had to camp in the open on river bank. This improper behavior gave Gurudev immense pain, and he chose to stay in a tent along with the sadhus. The crestfallen devotees, who now realized their mistake, rushed to the river bank to bring back Gurudev. He replied quietly, "For us sadhus, the river bank is the only appropriate place." Wiser by this incident, for the rest of the journey, the devotees always made prior arrangement for the sadhus, yet, often out of choice, Gurudev preferred to camp on the river bank in a tent. He would ask by name about each person's well-being and would rest only when all others in the group were properly looked after and settled comfortably. When the group was about 1 mile away from Badrinath and on a slippery and steep road, it started to rain heavily. Though the pilgrims felt worried, Gurudev told them to get ahead of him, and he would stay on the rear and at some distance from them. They saw to their surprise that while they remained dry, the rain was falling on Gurudev and soaking his clothes just a few yards behind him. Gurudev thus bore the brunt of the inclement weather to keep the devotees safe and dry. No sooner had they reached their destination than it rained heavily and incessantly throughout the night. Thus, by his yogic powers, Gurudev took upon himself the hardships and consequent illnesses of his devotees to enable them to complete the pilgrimage. He acted like a fond father who takes upon himself the hardships that are meant for his children. Similarly, Gurudev took upon himself the rigors of the journey and kept his devotees free from harm. On completion of the journey, by way of blessings and advice, Gurudev addressed the devotees thus: "Formerly, only sadhus could undertake this pilgrimage. You have seen for yourself the sort of hardships that have to be borne even in the present times. In order to commemorate the pilgrimage, formerly people used to give up some eatables like brinjals, potatoes, rice, etc. But if you truly wish to derive real benefit from the pilgrimage, take a vow that henceforth you will not cause any harm to others, and that you will be compassionate and kind to the poor and be truthful in your business deals. Remember to chant the name of the Lord as often as possible. If you wish that your birth in human form becomes fruitful, then give up your vices instead of mere eatables. At Gondal, Haribhai had insisted on several occasions that Gurudev should take over the management of the local Ram Mandir. Though he showed reluctance at first, he finally agreed and suggested formation of a trust and the supervision of the mandir and the adjacent ashram was left to Moniji. Later, Haricharandasji was sent from Chitrakoot to relieve Moniji. During this period, Shri Ram Sanskrit Mahavidyalaya was established at Chitrakoot on Guru Purnima Day. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 35. Reforming Influence of a Saint. In Rajkot, whenever Gurudev gave discourses, Natu Bhai would come and listen, and at the end offer his pranam from a distance and leave. Despite opposition from his family, Natu Bhai was engaged in the nefarious trading of narcotics like ganja and charas. As a last resort, the family approached Gurudev. He sent for Natu Bhai and advised him to mend his ways and told him to open a pawn shop. His elder brother was willing to provide all the assistance for his rehabilitation. However, Natu Bhai could not benefit from this sage counsel and continued with his evil activities. Once again, Pujya Shri called him to his kutir. When Natu Bhai arrived, Gurudev was eating a few pieces of a fruit, and he gave a handful to Natu Bhai as prasad and told him sharply, "Natu, now you had better listen. If you still persist in your evil ways, the police will nab you and ruin your life." Like a delinquent child who ignores well-meaning advice of his father, Natu Bhai ignored even this final warning and at last fell in the hands of Bombay police. He was pushed into the police van for being taken to the police station. On the way, Natu Bhai recalled Gurudev's final warning and mentally prostrated himself before him. After chanting Gurudev's name several times, he gathered enough courage to plead before the officer in charge, "Please let me go this one time. I promise that I will never indulge in such activity again." Somehow the reverential chanting of Gurudev's name and the prasad of few pieces of fruit showed their benevolent effect. He was let off with a few slaps and not booked for prosecution and subsequent jail term. Natu Bhai considered this narrow escape from imprisonment as divine grace of Gurudev, due to which he was let off so lightly. He considered this as a sign to mend his ways. Despite Natu Bhai's initial disobedience, Gurudev's infinite kindness saved him from penal servitude in jail. After this, Natu Bhai never reverted to his former evil ways, but led the life of an honest, civic-minded and useful citizen. Truly, it has been said, if you rise from prayers a better man, you have your prayers answered. William Shakespeare. Jai Bhagwan. Sarve Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukham Apnuyat,